On to our next matchup. It is the first Saturday matchup of the week and the first Saturday matchup of the season. It's the Denver Broncos hosting the Buffalo Bills. This is a 50-point over-under. Buffalo favored by 6 on the road.
Right here.
If you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit subscribe and follow us here on YouTube. Hit that like button. Ask us all your comments, or ask us all your questions in the comments below. Comment all your comments, if you will. And we will start with the Buffalo Bills side of the football. Johnny, I want to know what you're thinking with Josh Allen this week. He's had a couple, maybe not crazy good games over the last couple games, but do you think he can hit that ceiling? And is he going to bring people to the fantasy championship?
Yeah, I do think that when you're looking at Josh Allen, there might be a lot of questions because he's frankly kind of disappointed from what he started off. He started off really, really hot, and he's kind of cooled off a little bit, and he's been okay, but there could be some waiver wire quarterbacks that people might have, quote unquote, a little bit more confidence in because of the matchup. But I'm here to tell you, like, Denver, yeah, their defense is pretty stout. But they give up just 236 passing yards per game, which is like the 9th best when you're looking at a defensive perspective, and they're only giving up 1.23 passing touchdowns a game. And you look at what Josh Allen has been doing over the last few or how much he's doing this year. Pardon me. He's averaging 280 passing yards a game. But here's where it gets interesting and why I think he's a confident play in this. If you look at the rushing defense of the Denver Broncos on opposing quarterbacks, they're giving up the most rushing touchdowns, 6, to opposing quarterbacks, as well as the 5th most rushing yards. And while we all know how much Josh Allen can get out and likes to show his running mobility, he's averaging about 7 rushes per game this year, and he's thrown 2 or more touchdowns in all but 3 games this season. So I do believe that Josh Allen is a solid start this week.
Austin, a lot of that is built within the pass catchers that he's got around him. We actually might see John Brown, who was activated off of the IR this week, but let's say he doesn't make it back. We've got Stephon Diggs, obviously. Outside of that, how are you looking at this wide receiving core, these pass catchers, and attacking this Denver defense?
Yeah, Big Travie, the only question is outside of Stephon Diggs, because there is no question to top the wide receiver pecking order here, where Stephon Diggs is the number 7 in standard and the number 3 PPR wide receiver on the year. And you look at his floor, it's like a high-rise floor, man. This guy's lowest points per game the entire season and half point is 7.4, excuse me. You'll love to see that. So the question then really comes in of the wide receivers outside, just as you framed it there. If John Brown is playing, you got to keep an eye on that. But I'd agree with you, Travis, that it's unlikely he comes back this week. And I don't think they're going to really need him, given Cole Beasley and Gabriel Davis's overall success in the last couple of weeks. Cole Beasley's the hotter ad, 21 targets over the last 2 weeks, 11 and 10. You'd love to see that. And guys, quietly, Cole Beasley's on pace for 1,000 yards this season. I just think that's the coolest thing. Way to get it, man. The issue, though, for me with Cole Beasley is he plays predominantly in the slot, as does Denver quarterback Will Parks, who lets up a near ridiculous 0.83 yards per route run, which is nasty good. The other wide receiver to put a little consideration towards, though, is Gabriel Davis. He has 3 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. And now we know we don't really bank on touchdowns that often, especially at the wide receiver spot. The man has some reason to believe this is prescribed. He leads the team in wide receiver red zone targets and leads the team with 6 touchdowns. Weird. He does need those touchdowns, though, as he hasn't broken 5 catches or 82 yards this season. But I'll tell you, there's something to get excited about here with Gabriel Davis while John Brown is out.
Is there anything to get excited about with Dawson Knox, Johnny? He's kind of increased his usage over the last few weeks. Are you buying into it? Are you chasing the points there?
I'm not chasing the points just because when you're looking at the tight end position, it's been very kind of easier to sculpt and find your streamers based on the defense that they're playing. That's the one position that's pretty accurate when you're trying to gauge just how many points they give up, and they're the 7th best against the tight end. So I wouldn't be looking at Dawson Knox, but it is interesting to note 2 games with 4 or more targets and back-to-back games with a touchdown or an end zone target. So Josh Allen is looking for him, but I just think it's too much of a gamble to try to play him in this game.
And I think you'd be gambling really hard with Zack Moss or Devin Singletary, who have great matchup on paper. I mean, 18.6 points per game Denver gives up. That's 11th most. They give up 11 rushing touchdowns this year. That's 4th most. They're 1,298 rushing yards given up. That's the 9th most in the league. So you're saying there should be something here to trust. The problem is Zack Moss and Devin Singletary just keep taking away from each other, and then they have big old Josh Allen taken away from them as well. Really, it's about the goal line. Inside the 5, Allen has 8 attempts. He's converted 6 touchdowns. Moss has 7 attempts, but only converted 2 touchdowns. Singletary, 4 attempts and only converted 1 touchdown. So for me, there's just no upside in either of these backs. I'd be fading both regardless of the matchup. They just have not been getting it done. On the Denver side of the football, Johnny, there is somebody to trust, at least in the running back core. Usually it's been Melvin Gordon. How are you feeling about this week against Buffalo? We saw James Conner poised to have a great game against Buffalo. They were a great matchup. Obviously, he was ineffective with his own situation. How are you feeling about these Denver backs?
And Buffalo giving up 98.2 yards per game to opposing running backs, and they're giving up about 0.77 rushing touchdowns a game this season. So, yeah, there was a lot to like about the matchup for James Conner. Unfortunately, he just kind of fell flat. But when you're looking at this running back core, you guys, like, this has been Melvin Gordon's, with the sprinkle of Phillip Lindsay and what we need to understand of the running back landscape and how it's built today. Phillip Lindsay would be the change of pace guy, but Melvin Gordon was really getting it done as a nice RB2 for you. But monitor this situation. Now, if he plays and is expected to go, I'm playing him. I'm starting him in at least my flex position here. But he did bang up his shoulder late in the game in week 14. So he only ended up with 13 carries for 68 yards. But if he is out, then I do think Phillip Lindsay would be a really nice play. He's received double-digit touches in 3 out of 4 games, and he's averaging 39.8 yards of scrimmage per game when he hasn't scored a touchdown during that stretch. But again, that's as that satellite kind of change of pace back. They would lean on him a lot more if Melvin Gordon is out.
Austin, Drewlock has one of the greenest schedules if you look at playoffs matchups. It looks great. You should be able to attack it. He has been somebody that has teetered in and out of relevancy for fantasy football all year. He'll have a great game and then disappear, have a great game, disappear. This is another one that looks good on the schedule. The secondary for Buffalo been susceptible in the past. Any reason to trust Lock this week?
No, Big Trav, you hit it really on the head there. The Bills are not an awful matchup going against the quarterback. It's the 18th best pass defense there in Buffalo. And you like what Drewlock did last week. It was amazing with his 4 touchdowns, but that 4 touchdowns, 0 interception game drove his touchdowns to interceptions equal on the season. He's got equal parts interceptions and equal parts touchdowns over the course of the season. And last week was his first interception list game since week 1. Love that. I'd like him in a 2 quarterback league, but I'm going to be really looking somewhere else if it's a 1 quarterback league for me, Travis. Look at Josh. When you take a look at Drewlock's numbers past the fantasy side, he's the 29th quarterback in quarterback ranking at just 50.2, right ahead of everyone's favorite Carson Wentz. And in deep passing, he's the number 37 in quarterback ranking, 38th in adjusted completion percentage, and overall 27 fantasy quarterback on the year. Travis, I'm good passing on Lock this week for another passer.
I think that's the way to do it. And I think what we've seen out of Lock and this passing offense is inconsistency, right? Jerry Jeudy was a hot ad earlier in the year, but he's had 3 or fewer catches in 4 straight games, has not eclipsed 70 yards in 5 straight games. Buffalo itself, pretty bad against wide receivers. If you have the wide receiver, they're allowing the 12th fewest points to fantasy wide receivers with 22.4, but it gets better for the number 2 wide receiver and really for the slot wide receiver. So I'm going to start with KJ Hamler, whose matchup I love. KJ Hamler, 50 or more receiving yards in 3 of his last 6, 5 or more targets in 4 of his last 6 games, and 2 of 3 last week for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. So against Carolina, he exploited the slot corner there. Then you look at, we've talked about this at least every week for the past 10. Tyron Johnson of Buffalo is giving up the 6th most yards per route run in the NFL, 1.56. He just gets torched. So you usually love your slot receiver against Buffalo's slot corner. That is Hamler in this one. So normally, we'd come to this matchup and I'd, be agreeing with Johnny that Tim Patrick, is a guy that I'd be looking at here. Double-digit fantasy points in 4 of his last 6 games, 4 touchdowns in that same span, 4 or more catches in 4 of his last 6. But I really like KJ Hamler more here. And I think both will be worth, flex-worthy starts here in this game. But I think for me, it's Hamler.
Hey,
I'm going to give the nod to Hamler.
Big Trev, just come out and say it, dude. Exo facto, connect the dotso. It's KJ Hamler. It's done. That's fine.
Yeah,
I
look,
agree. I agree.
Everybody likes a good Christmas ham, so get some KJ Hamler in your lineup.
There
I
you
think
go.
that's fine.
There you go.
I wanted to know, Austin, if you could make any sense. We talked about Mike Williams burning me, giving me a 0. Noah Fant did the same thing with an illness. Looks like he's not ready to practice yet. Anything there with the Denver tight end in this matchup?
No, Noah Fant for me, Big Travie, is dealing with some health issues. You got to monitor that. If he is active, to me, he's an upside touchdown-dependent option going up against the 7th easiest tight end defense here in Buffalo. But once again, it's another upside play. We know the physical capabilities in Noah Fant. We just haven't seen it strung together over the course of a season, and he's going to kind of need a touchdown to make your day. But we all know he has upside.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll go, but if he doesn't, Vanette is an interesting pickup because he did get the touchdown last week, and this is a decent matchup here. Nothing better than Packers football, except for Packers football on a Saturday. My Green Bay Packers will be hosting the Carolina Panthers Saturday evening in a 51-point over-under. Should say our Green Bay Packers. That's also Austin's favorite team as well.
Shareholder.
The Packers are favored by 8.5 points at home in Lambeau Field, so that'll be nice to see a primetime game. Before we get into this matchup, if you're new to our YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and comment below, and let us know what kind of fantasy football questions you have this week, or just how good we look. Let us know how good we look. We love that too. I want to start with the Carolina Panthers because they have looked good at times, but they will be facing a juggernaut here on the Green Bay Packers. Johnny, if you're looking at the wide receiver position, it looks like DJ Moore might be able to give it a go. That's what a lot of these fantasy football analysts are saying that are out there with us. What with DJ Moore? What outside of DJ Moore? How are you looking? Because Green Bay's secondary has been really tough this year.
They definitely have. If DJ Moore goes, he's going to be a big boomer bust wide receiver 3. I would ultimately throw him in my lineup as a wide receiver 3 flex because he has tremendous upside. Even though it is a difficult matchup, Green Bay 10th best defense against wide receivers this season. They're only allowing about 1 passing touchdown a game, and they're giving up the 7th least amount of explosive plays. But we've seen that time and time again where DJ Moore only needs a couple of catches in order to make a good fantasy day. And so I would be okay in a situation where maybe you need that in your lineup. I think DJ Moore would be a fine play. Now, Robbie Anderson should be lined up against Jair Alexander. My co-host here can tell you all about Jair and how awesome he is. He is a phenomenal corner. He is giving up 0.16 fantasy points per route ran, and this guy is not getting enough credit, honestly, for it. This guy is one of the best in the league. Robbie Anderson, though, if DJ Moore does not go, then it would be Robbie Anderson would be a pure volume play. He saw 12 targets without DJ Moore in the lineup, and he's averaging about 8 with DJ Moore in the lineup. So, and if DJ Moore is playing and you're wanting to risk a Robbie Anderson play, I really think you're going to get a really low floor, and I'm not sure the ceiling is all that high, so I don't know about that. And then, we're going to get a lot of questions on Curtis Samuel. If DJ Moore doesn't play, it would be kind of the similar story that I have for DJ Moore, right? For Curtis Samuel, and he actually will have the best matchup when you're looking at the Green Bay Packers corner. Their slot corner gives up the most fantasy points per route ran. So Curtis Samuel's similar boat to DJ Moore, high boom bust wide receiver 3. I don't know if I would trust him entirely in my lineup in this week, but you can throw him out there if you are desperate.
They say what's bad for the geese is bad for the gander. Do we believe if the wide receivers are bad that Teddy Bridgewater is probably going to have a bad day too, Austin?
I think it's really the other way around on this one. Teddy Bridgewater is a skilled NFL quarterback. a solid game manager, which really equates to a deflated fantasy start, coming in at 17 points per game. Look, Teddy Bridgewater is a good quarterback. He's the number 3 QB in adjusted completion percentage. He's number 10 in deep completions, but just 19 in deep attempts. He just doesn't go for it, which I know DJ Moore and all the fantasy owners out there would really appreciate it if he did. Here's the brutal truth. Teddy Bridgewater, 33% of the time, doesn't throw you a touchdown. And the Packers give up, surprisingly, the 8th fewest points to the quarterback position. He's a floor play any given week. I don't see a ton of upside. I don't see him switching the way he plays quarterback this week, Travis. I'd fade on this one if you could, outside of 2 quarterback situations.
I am equally as excited about Mike Davis as you guys are not excited about the other weapons in this offense. And that's because Mike Davis is playing the Green Bay Packers, and they are still giving up the 4th most points per game to the position. 23 points per game surrendered. They give up the 2nd most rushing touchdowns in 2020 with 13. And, yep, they don't stop there. They've given up the 2nd most receiving touchdowns to running backs with 5. You look at Mike Davis, he did have some down weeks, obviously, but he returned in a good spot against a cupcake matchup last week against the Broncos. That was his 4th 20-point PPR game of 2020, and he went 11 for 51 and 2 touchdowns, 5 of 6 for 42 yards. It's significant because he got back involved in the passing game, which is what we loved with CMC, and then Mike Davis when CMC was out. We talked about here what Green Bay is able to do or able to not do against the run, I should say. So Mike Davis, for me, is a prime start in this prime matchup. Austin, I want to go to the running backs on the Green Bay side of the ball. We obviously know Aaron Jones also in a great matchup, also been very good. But you wanted to talk a little bit about Jamal Williams as well.
Touching quickly on Aaron Jones, he's been such a solid fantasy player for you all season. Number 5 in both PPR and standard formats. He's involved all over the field, and last week was his highest snap percentage of the season at 71%. 15 touches, 69 yards, nice for 4.6 yards per carry, and was still involved there in the passing game, getting 3 targets coming his way. Caught 2 of them for just 6 yards, but we all know what he is capable of. You just like to see those targets continue to come his way, and it actually looks like right now his involvement might be ramping up a little bit, which we know is not the best news for Jamal Williams, and the desperation start managers are considering if Jamal Williams is somebody they're factoring in. Don't roll out Jamal Williams this week. It's a low ceiling pure runner who hasn't broken 78 rush yards all season long and racks up less than 40 yards 66% of the time. That's 8 of the 12 games he's been active in. He hasn't broken 40 yards. And with Aaron Jones's increased time on the field, that just is not going to be trending the direction you'd like to see for Jamal Williams, Travis.
Typically, in a fantasy football podcast, we're not going to sit here and try and convince you to start Aaron Rodgers. But because I am a Green Bay Packers fan, and so is Austin, we're going to let Johnny tell us how good Aaron Rodgers has been.
Well, I just think this is so funny and how it lines up, right? Just the storyline, and we love storylines in fantasy football, don't we? Well, look at this. Carolina allowing, on average, 260 passing yards per game. Well, Aaron Rodgers has only thrown less than 260 yards 3 times this entire season. And then you look at what Carolina is giving up in the passing game, 1.77 passing touchdowns on average per game. Well, Aaron Rodgers has thrown 2 or more touchdowns in all but 1 game this season. Aaron Rodgers will continue to give you that discount double check because he will be on a lot of championship rosters this year because you were able to get him so late, and you're probably able to really build up your team because of it.
Yeah, and not only has it been Aaron Rodgers doing it himself, but he's got this cast of characters that he continues to elevate. I mean, obviously, Devontae Adams is a world beater. He now has the NFL's 3rd longest streak of 8 straight games with a touchdown, so that's still on the line here. 8 straight games with 17 or more PPR fantasy points. So you love that. The question becomes, in the wide receiving room, are we tempted now? I actually am a little tempted with MVS, and I know we've had this roller coaster of up and down with MVS, and it's like a drug addict. I'm back here again, tapping into the needle. But MVS has 6 or more targets in 3 of his last 5. The big thing for me was Rodgers talking him up in the press conference after this last game. He had a man's man catch against Detroit, really high-pointed it and really got it done. And then, of course, Rodgers went in the press conference, said one of the smartest, best plays he's seen in the NFL. And it's like, okay, I hope that equates to him being more consistent. Carolina has given up 14 wide receiver touchdowns in 2020, including 3 last week to KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick. So I really think MVS is a fine bet. He's going to see Dante Jackson, who is allowing the most yards per route run of any Carolina cornerback this season. We know MVS is the big play threat. I think you could do a lot worse at flex than trying to get MVS in there, who is going to be good for at least a couple deep targets, and it only takes one to make your day. So for me, I'm fine rolling MVS out in the flex. I don't think it's, it's definitely scary, but I don't think it's the worst thing you could do. A lot of people will ask us about Allen Lazard, obviously. He's converted 6 of his 7 red zone targets this season, but he has just 1 game over 50 yards and 4 games back from injury. So I'm actually kind of fading Lazard for MVS's upside here.
And Big Travie, I just wanted to throw in on MVS. He had 6 targets last week, caught all 6 of them, which is a season high. So he's trending in a good direction.
Yeah, a season high, maybe a career high catch percentage in a game for sure. I do want to just note on Robert Tunyan, man, let it ride with this guy. 4 straight games of 5 targets, touchdowns in 4 straight games. He's climbed to the tight end 3 in standard formats. Robert Tunyan's been a revelation for a quarterback who was never supposed to be able to throw to tight ends, wasn't good at throwing to his tight ends. He's now got a top 5 tight end in fantasy football. And then you look at Carolina, they're the 11th worst defense against fantasy tight ends. I love it. I love what Matt LaFleur's done for Robert Tunyan, or Mini Kittle, as they like to call him. And I love what Aaron Rodgers is doing for Tunyan as well. Well, we'd love to hear from you guys, Whisper Nation. Make sure you comment below all your questions for this week 15. And as always, make sure you're following us on all social media platforms, heading on over to the site, thefantasywhispers.com. For ARC, or Austin Sear, as we like to call him, for Johnny Game Time Hicks, and for me, Big Travie, we are the Fantasy Whispers. We're out. Peace.
Peace.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and click subscribe. And if you want to watch more fantasy football content, check out one of these videos.